Happy Pride! Let's talk about kamikatsu, which may or may not be a word. I actually talked about this in the first video I ever made, but nobody watched it, so let's try again. Especially now that I kinda know how to edit. So I encountered the word kamikatsu in October of 2023 when a Asahi Shimbun article talked about it as a term used to refer to the activities, katsu from katsudo, that somebody does when they are coming out of the closet. So the kami there comes from coming out, which is a pretty established phrase in Japanese, obviously borrowed from English. Now, coming out katsudo is not like a super popular phrase, but it has seen use since at least 2013 and has appeared in academic literature, unlike kamikatsu. And just coming out itself has been a borrowing for decades now. I can find uses going back to 1998 at the latest, and Google Trends shows sustained interest since it started taking data with a spike in early 2005. So given that Japanese people love shortening things, one of the many linguistic similarities between them and Australian culture, Japanese people, Australians, shortening words. It's no surprise really that Kamingu Auto Katsudo would get shortened to Kamikatsu, except has it? Back in the first video I made on this topic, I noted that besides this Asahi Shimbun article, I couldn't really find anyone anywhere using the phrase kamikatsu. Now, I'm not saying that Asahi made it up. This channel is not one where I attempt to make you disbelieve mainstream media in order to convince you to believe even less reliable media, but rather it just doesn't seem very popular. And even years after the article, I cannot find people using kamikatsu to refer to their coming out activities. I'm sure it happens. Again, someone did because they wrote an article about it, but the term doesn't seem to have popped off. But what's interesting though is that kamikatsu as a sound sequence does have a massive number of meanings in Japanese to date. Just none of them are LGBT related. For instance, if you go onto Twitter and search year by year, you can find uses of kamikatsu going back to 2013. But these are references to the group Coming Century and activities of fans related to that group. And while you may think, oh, what if it's like God activities? That'd be a funny joke. First, that joke has already been made. And actually, this has been used since 2023 by fans of the manga series Kamikatsu Working for a God in a Godless World to refer to that series. You may think, well, that makes sense, but that's the English title. The Japanese title doesn't have kamikatsu in it. They just took this name here and made kamikatsu out of the kami-sama katsudo, and then that was, I guess, borrowed into English. And kamikatsu can also link to gods, and people use it when they post pictures of them going to temples, shrines, etc. Kamikatsu can also be used, and has been used quite extensively, to refer to images or videos of animals that are cute biting things. This is not like a small thing. You can see many examples above my face. This is a legitimate use of kamikatsu to date. And there are also people that have just made up new kamikatsu in kind of an idiosyncratic way. This person uses it to refer to going to a bar, which has the name kamikatsu, so I guess that makes sense. Or even potentially just eating french fries. And one of my more bizarre data points is a person who in 2017 became a huge fan of someone named Camilo from the game 100 Princes and referred to their oshikatsu for that character as kamikatsu. Now, while this is just almost literally one person, at least I can't evidence anyone else doing this, fans of people named Camilo in other media products have done this exact same thing. For instance, here you're looking at fans of Disney's Encanto talking about their enjoyment, their oshikatsu for a character named Camilo in that show. I don't know when any of these started because they all kind of blend together, but they're existing in the same space as the coming out katsudo that I mentioned earlier. And while there are posts like this one on Yahoo! Chiebukuro from 2023, which seem to indicate that people are interested in this term, most natural use of it actually refers to or is spawned by the Asahi article. Again, that was in October. The Yahoo! Chiebukuro post was in December. The post you're looking at right now all specifically reference it, etc. If you look at kamikatsu on other websites, you can see, like for instance on YouTube, the biting one is really popular. TikTok as well, you see animals in temples. Though I was able to find one blog back in 2014 which references kamikatsu quite explicitly to refer to coming out katsudo. So again, it does exist. But regardless of whether or not kamikatsu is a term that's rather idiosyncratic or is one that will eventually see use, I have no doubt that terms relating to, coming out, activities relating to coming out, are going to increase in the Japanese landscape. Japan is regularly positioned in Western media as a conservative country, and I would say that broadly speaking, sure. But it's a mistake to just simply attach Western understandings, especially like a given country's understandings of conservatism, onto Japan. For instance, according to the Pew Research Center, more Japanese people are concerned with climate change issues than even in Australia, and obviously than America, going up to 82%. And while I'd be lying if I claimed that Japan was some kind of paradise for LGBT individuals, discussions of male-male love known as non-shoku have existed up until the Meiji period, when they became kind of looked at with disfavor due to Western influence. Male-male relationships are mentioned in the Tale of Genji, for instance. And obviously boys' love has been something that's extremely popular in Japan among certain sectors for quite some time. And LGBT people have been features of television programs for decades now. Matsuko Deluxe, for instance, is a well-known, basically staple of Japanese TV. It has been popular for a long time. Additionally, while actual legal recognition of LGBT relationships has been slow, polling for the last decade or so has consistently put the number of people who either strongly support or support gay marriage in Japan at 65 to 75% depending on the poll, with most showing the people that are strongly opposed being less than 10%. So while Japan's government is very slow to move on this issue, it actually doesn't reflect the average opinion of a Japanese person. And if Japan were to have a plebiscite similar to the one we had in Australia, where people just, go out and vote on whether they think gay marriage should be legal, the question isn't whether or not it would pass, the question is if it would pass by 10, 15, or 20%. Indeed, one of the most discussed shows last year, Futeki Setsu ni Mohodo ga Aru, which I liked and recommended, I even wrote a blog post recommending it, but it's basically the most centrist fence-sitting show of all centrist fence-sitting shows, ends with the main character, who is a character that time travels from the 1980s to present Japan and basically starts as a bigoted jerk, ends up giving his own personal money to a gay couple because the company they work for doesn't give them a marriage bonus, whereas it is given to straight relationships, and he thinks this is unethical and decides to solve it himself. And in fact, when he goes back in time to his own time, he stands up in defense of a man who enjoys dressing up in women's clothing. It doesn't seem that the person is transgender, they just like doing it, and this character calls for greater understanding of, that person's interests. So all in all, while kamikatsu may not be a word that anyone will understand if you use it, there's no question that activities related to coming out are something that is of more and more concern within Japan. And acceptance of diverse LGBT relationships and identities does seem to be moving in a positive direction. So good luck on your kamikatsu, or good job supporting others in their kamikatsu, even if kamikatsu isn't really yet a word that you can use to describe any of this at all.